this a year ago? Where are your uploads, my guy? What the hell? This is great. If you are able to upload consistently, you're up next, bro. You're up next. You're Sofago. Oh, wait, no. You're not Sofago. You're not Sofago. Up next! Sofago! Up next!
I'm an optimist, but I'm also a realist. It's a quote from what I would consider to be an underrated figure of pop culture, Silver the Hedgehog. The circumstances of where that quote's from aside, it's put to where certain feelings I've been struggling to accept, at least with what I do here. I've listened to many creators' advice on certain principles of creating art in this day and age, and I've even made a few videos covering a few of those subjects. But the realization that I've come to, or more honestly was too stubborn to accept, was that you gotta play the game. At least for a while. But what am I talking about here? Game in this context is me referring to the path and environment within content creation. It's safe to say that this field is becoming more saturated with each year, with some of my favorite creators even going on record to express their frustrations on the shift of certain spaces. People's intentions, clout chasing, all pitfalls that give the title of a YouTuber or Twitch streamer a bad name. Being that I'm recognized for my video essays currently, I wanted to be a little more vulnerable than usual and give you guys a little insight as to certain lessons I've had to accept from my observations and pitfalls, and what I'm personally doing to change. So starting off is marketing, and I think an EP like Pink Panther's is Fancy That Era has been very enlightening from the outside looking in. While I admittedly haven't listened to much of her stuff post to hell with it, much of the conversation surrounding her career points to the remarkable artist development, other than fully developing a cerebral complex. Her fashion, public personality, and most notably her stage presence has caught up with significantly more eyes, and has proceeded to steadily grow in a way some may not have expected given her musical upbringing. But despite the world's first impressions of her, her mindset proceeded to push past many of her contemporaries with her analytic savvy mindset. From the start, the constant consumption of her influences would come to a head in its usefulness whenever she decided to make the decision to become a recording artist, on top of her producer background. This proximity media interview is what I would deem a good look in the mind of a self-produced star. Specifically her understanding early on with marketing. If you remember, her early snippets on TikTok served as market research, testing the waters of reception to the jungle scene that was slowly bubbling outside of its UK roots. Contemporaries like Lil Nas X come from a unique era, their formative experiences on the internet equipping them to become early adopters of what would become the saturated short form media today. Her point towards marketing being another art form speaks to not only her intuition navigating a new opportunity of promotion, but also her ability to connect with her audience. Even with her steady increase in appeal from the mainstream, I always got the picture that she has a more personal connection with her fan base, especially with her choice of visuals from the To Hell With It era. Coupled with the dark and moodier videos in the world still in their homes and finding solace in a quarantine era, it's safe to say that she took and ran with the perfect opportunity at the right time. As for me, I distinctly remember back when I started this channel, one of the biggest things people told me to do was to post shorts. Whether it be clipping moments from previous videos or making entirely new content from the format, I only managed to make one of a random joke, and that was the only one I had for months on end. You can actually see on the black hair videos right there. Other than simply not knowing how to approach TikToks and stuff, there was definitely a sense of ego and elitism that I wasn't willing to admit at the time. Short form content taking over every other platform wasn't as normal as it is in 2026, so my resistance came from the idea that long form content is inherently better than short form. There's been many recent studies and videos analyzing the effects of short form content on attention span, online discussion, its proximity to sharing information, platforms' responses to that shift, genuine concerns about this fairly recent format that warrant actual discussion. But at the time, I definitely was just using some of those to cope. I couldn't wrap my head around this change that actually wasn't inherently unethical for once, and it was only later where I realized the potential this space offered that I was refusing to take. And I've since found a new appreciation for what everyone, contemporaries or otherwise, have been able to build off this new wave of content. FD Signifier actually talks about this exact topic in one of his stream highlight videos. From the outside looking in, this guy seems to have an understanding of balance and compromise, this concept I touched on in my Fireboy video. It's almost to the point where it's an inside joke, but at the same time a set of very real business decisions. Thumbnail and title changes are almost synonymous with his main channel uploads, but underneath that is the brute force attempts to get your ideas to as many people as possible possible within that release window. Take a look at his channel right now and at this clip on screen, and I guarantee you it's not the same now, and it definitely won't be in the future. Kill your darlings is something he says in an earlier video watching other video essayists in regards to thumbnails. In this stream video, he recalls how a then 8-month Lupe Fiasco video was commented on by someone who didn't like clickbaity thumbnails. For context, this is the original, and from the perspective of an artist, from the assets to the overall composition, I love the original more out of any other version he cooked up the following week. He even commissioned someone $350 to get it done, but it flopped initially. Something similar happened with this cannabis video, initially hitting a 10 out of 10, which, for those who don't know YouTube, that's really bad. Within 2 thumbnail changes in a week, he got that from a 10 out of 10 to a 6 out of 10, and from a 6 to a 3. And now it's his 10 most viewed video overall at the time of recording this. So be honest when I ask you this. If this is your intended livelihood, this feature-length project you worked on flops, and you're relying on this income for the next month in between your next video, are you really not gonna do anything to change that outcome? If that's really how you move, I don't want to imply one approach is inherently better. In that Flower Boy video I mentioned earlier, my point was that you could end up in the exact same place. Tyler at a certain point decided to tone down his wonkier style of production for a wider audience, while still unlocking musical milestones. Meanwhile, a group like RDC did exactly what they wanted, copyright, repost, and etc. be damned, and they were broke for almost half a decade before they really started supporting themselves with videos alone. Yet look at Tyler and Mark both at the Rock Nation brunch. So I'm not saying it's impossible, far from it, but really think about what you're willing to do, ethically of course, to get to where you want to be. I've since tried and failed a couple times to figure this out, and sometimes I think about how better I'd be at this if I were willing to take a more earnest shot all these years ago, but what can you do? Presentation can be the difference between longevity and quick spurts of motion, but also the audience you wish to attract. YouTube's one of the clearest examples of an at-a-glance marketing with thumbnails. You can tell what the latest meta is in a certain category when you look at enough channels in their catalog. Reaction videos have their face on the left or right with the red rectangle currently. Game reviewers may have custom borders to differentiate themselves. And in where I've been put in, the typical video essay may have something like Arial bold italic text, images relating from on topic to tangential, with a slightly disgruntled face in the middle. I've even attempted a few of these previously listed things, but I always try to add something a little different to build a style unique to my channel. In fact, let me show you an example. So this thumbnail is for a potential video idea. I tend to make thumbnails first in the process to save time and decided to try a more dynamic composition. When I sent a work in progress to one of my friends, he proceeded to say, "It definitely looks like a thumbnail for a hip-hop commentary channel." Now, whatever you think my content is, right? It is not hip-hop commentary. And for those who've been watching for a while, I don't even like commentary content that much. I won't get into it today. Does this thumbnail look appealing? Yeah, I'd say so. Will this attract the intended audience? I'm not so sure, and that's my issue. People underestimate the value of the surface level or first impression. If I present the content in a certain way, even if more people watch it initially, how many will care to stick around long term for what I have to say? One of my most important goals is to always make sure that I bring the value of what I have to say instead of revolving my content solely across the topic at hand, because I've seen in real time what happens when this approach blows up in your face. There's no one in particular that I'm shading with this, and I have no ill will towards anyone who does take this approach. It's just the last thing I want to do with this, I'm not gonna lie. Hi, Editing Lou here. Just wanted to say some stuff real quick. The last clip you saw was actually the end to that presentation segment, but midway through editing, I realized that I didn't quite explain myself or give enough examples, I felt like. So let's do that here real quick. Another concern from the way you conduct yourself online or just with your work in general is not just whether or not people will care about what you have to say, but whether or not people will respect you as an individual in general. There's a Sansi clip I go back to whenever talking about this topic, where he details the aftermaths and the consequences of a Lizzo video he posted a while back. Now, with the video being presumably down, I can only make educated guesses. I don't have any context to the thumbnail, any remarks or jokes he may have made, or even the general tone he gave during the video. So keep that in mind. But in this clip from one of his Fantano videos, he talks about the weird influx of comments as well as the genuine success the video was doing at the time, which I can only assume was just a cesspool of misogyny and probably misogynoir as well. And what really had Sean realize his mess up was when Adam22 of all people went into his DMs and told him he was hilarious. Even if the contents or the full package of that specific video was maybe a one-off thing, had he chose to lean in or keep that type of energy around, his later fan base would be essentially a congregation of You know those type of people, I'm not gonna explain. Lames, weirdos, basement dwellers, I could go on. From that Adam22 DM, he realized that whatever he did there, he would never do again. And so that type of reflection, I feel like as a creator, you have to have that type of awareness going into this. Another person, and I've already mentioned him already probably, Tyler. A while ago, I made a short about the last time people were digging into his tweets and stuff like that. But this wasn't a typical situation of people going back to Bastard or Goblin and cherry picking lyrics from there. The posts that people were digging up within this situation were what I felt to be actually questionable. Even with Tyler's public personality and general demeanor nowadays, there was at least 5+ years of that specific type of energy given, from the music to tweets to whatever else. You commit to something for 5 years and there's gonna be a good amount of people that stick to that type of version of you, regardless of just how far removed you are 10 years later. I think especially now with the current social climate, there's an awareness that I think you especially need to have, at least when moving intentionally. That's kind of all I wanted to say. Back to the video. Meanwhile, the conversation of consistency has always been interesting to me on social media as of late, because depending on the pocket your algorithm catches you in, two people can have completely different views on its importance in public output. One can present it as an imaginary hindrance that stifles true creativity in a world obsessed with momentum, while the other gives the practice more value on its road towards your success and may even approach the workflow with that as a priority. By consistency in this case, I don't mean working on your craft in general. I think that's something you commit to as often as possible, but more about posting final products. Two people I think are very different in their philosophies, at least to me, are Agent and Chris Nextdoor from A&P. Out of everyone in the collective, his public actions show that his work ethic is a standout trait. From consistently racking up the most streams in the group on a monthly basis, to even giving transparent info on his finances for free game during Streamer University, content is Agent's drive, and even from the outside looking in, you can see the fruits of that labor. However, with Chris, at least for a time, he was the complete opposite. A great editor, musician, a genuinely multifaceted guy with tools at his disposal, but he didn't drop. This video by SCR, sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, gives more in-depth into his career, but through multiple accounts of other creators. The best way people describe Chris for a while is the modern equivalent of potential man. That clip I showed earlier was from someone reacting to my channel and saying, "Up next like Sofago." They later said not like Sofago, but the point is, who wants to be up next? But all the while, some of the biggest creators you know have slowly adopted a scarce release schedule, and if anything, this contradicts the last X amount of minutes. That being said, one thing all these people have in common are the rips put in early on. To not use too many musical examples here, I think Corey Kenshin's a perfect example. I know it's a huge meme regarding his upload schedule now. Shoot, it was a meme over 10 years ago. But there's a reason people still come back to watch. For newer viewers, it may be hard to believe, but there was a time where this guy was actually uploading daily, to the point where he'd make 2-minute videos to keep certain streaks going. Ignoring the newfound responsibilities that come with creating a whole manga, I think the rapport you build with your audience informs a lot more about your longevity than you would think. And to be more specific with someone in my niche, H-Bomber guy. This guy can disappear for a year at a time, upload a feature-length video, and still be able to strike conversation within the platform, with each upload feeling more like an event. But looking at his older videos, you can see far more frequent uploads. What I'm saying is, there's a trust built with the supporters around you, and especially with the age of the internet, I'd argue you don't have the right to play the mysterious route early on. Even artists like Kendrick and Frank Ocean at some point were fairly active on social media. Frank was apparently pretty active on Tumblr before Blonde, and Kendrick was doing the whole live streams before even Section 80. I'd like to consider myself a private person online, and while I still want to keep that general boundary, I can afford to give a little more of myself to all of this. So what am I doing now? What's the future of all of this? There are a few announcements I kind of want to make. For one, I do now have an official Patreon. The tiers may or may not be established already by the time this is out, but expect Patreon first sneak peeks and breakdowns of videos as they get produced. YouTube's been pretty trigger happy on a multitude of creators recently, and while they've yet to do anything to me thankfully, I'd rather cover my bases just in case. 2, a different channel. I'm not moving to that one. Luhim will still have my main video essays or whatever else I want to do next. This is just more of an experimental ground for content I feel doesn't feel the main. 3, finally experimenting more. I realize I still got a ways to go on this creator journey, so I do want to cover more topics. I'd give you an idea on what to expect, but honestly, Don't expect any particular topic. I just hope that you offer me grace as I figure out what works and what doesn't. I do want this community to grow and for this channel to grow into something amazing, and I still intend on putting my best effort forward. For any aspiring YouTuber, streamer, artists, etc., hopefully this video gives a little more perspective on what to think about and maybe what not to do going into this. In the description are a few videos I feel can supplement or give more context to content creation if you're interested, but that's all I have to say. I'll see y'all in the next one.